The radio crackled with my own voice.
Hello, Ranger Unit. I need help out here.
I froze at the edge of the trees, one hand gripping my flashlight, the other clamped around the radio like I could choke the sound out of it. The transmission cut into static, then silence. My screen still showed my unit ID. Same channel, same frequency, same voice. And it had come from the closed trail. During training, they'd told me that stretch was off limits due to erosion, unstable ground, sinkholes, wildlife corridors, pick your excuse. But no one ever logged patrols there. No maintenance requests, no search grids. Just a thin strip of red tape between two leaning posts and a note on the internal map marked, "Do not enter. Reset barrier if disturbed." That was it. No explanation, no incident reports. Tonight, the tape was gone. Not torn, not sagging, just missing. The posts were still there, their tops scraped raw where the tape should have been tied. Beyond them, the trail dipped into fog so thick it swallowed my beam after 10 feet. Pines crowded close on either side, branches whispering like they were leaning in to listen. I told myself the radio glitch was interference, old equipment, cold weather, anything but what it felt like. Then I saw the footprints. They started just past the posts and headed down the path, deep and clear in the damp dirt. Ranger boots, standard issue tread, same size as mine. They didn't look fresh. They didn't look old either. They looked like someone had been standing there for a long time and only just started walking again. I keyed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Hale. Barrier at Sector C is down. I'm resetting it now." Static answered. Then, faint and distant from somewhere ahead on the trail, "Copy that." Not dispatch. My voice. And this time, it didn't sound like it was coming from the radio. By morning, the tape was back in place and the fog had burned off like nothing had happened. I didn't file a report about the radio. I told myself I would, all through the drive back to the station. But when I opened the incident log, my cursor just blinked at me like it was waiting to see what kind of mistake I was about to make. Instead, I wrote, "Barrier reset. No further action." When I mentioned the missing tape to Dan, the senior ranger on winter rotation, he didn't ask where or how. He just said, "You put it back, right?" "Yeah." "Good. That's all we do." I waited for more, an explanation, a joke, something, but he was already moving on to weather updates and trail closures like I hadn't almost answered a call from myself in the woods. Later, I checked the archive cabinet. There were gaps in the records for that sector, whole months where patrol logs jumped from one date to another with nothing in between. Camera trap footage was the same. Every time the closed trail edge came into frame, the image blurred into gray static, like the lens had been smeared with fog. That night, I dreamed of walking the path, not chasing anyone, not lost, just following markers that kept appearing exactly when I needed them, nailed to trees that hadn't been there before. When I woke up, my boots were muddy. The next evening, I heard footsteps near the station fence around dusk. Slow, careful, like someone pacing. I grabbed my light and swept the tree line. Nothing. But when I turned back, my radio was on. No transmission, no signal, just open channel, hissing softly, like it was waiting. Dan found me standing there and shook his head. "Rule of thumb," he said quietly. "If the trail reaches out, you don't answer." "Reaches out how?" I asked. He studied my face for a second, then looked past me toward the darkening woods. "You'll think it's procedural," he said. "Routine. Somebody needs help. Somebody messed up. and it'll feel like it's your job to fix it. What happens if you do? Dan didn't answer right away. Then we put the tape back, he said, and stop writing your name on the duty board. That was the first time I realized someone had scratched my name into the schedule for patrols I didn't remember signing up for. All of them near Sector C. The call came in just before midnight. Missing hiker, early 20s, last text ping near the closed sector, battery dead after that. Search and rescue wouldn't roll until daylight unless there was evidence of injury. There wasn't. Just silence, cold, and the part of the map no one wanted to look at too closely. Dan told me to stand down. "We wait for morning," he said. "That's protocol." But protocol also said we didn't leave people alone in freezing temperatures if there was a chance they were still alive. And I could already hear what the report would say if we did nothing. Location inaccessible. Search delayed due to conditions. So I drove out anyway. The tape was still there when I arrived, fluttering faintly in the breeze like it was trying to warn me. I stepped over it, telling myself I'd only go as far as the first marker, just enough to call out, just enough to say I tried. The forest swallowed sound fast. My boots barely echoed. Even the wind felt muted, like the trees were holding it back. Then I saw a trail sign nailed to a trunk. Standard arrow, reflective paint, but the lettering was wrong. Too neat, too clean, like it had just been printed. No weathering, no ranger stamp. It pointed deeper in. I followed it, then another, then another. My radio crackled with search traffic that didn't match my channel, voices overlapping, repeating coordinates that meant nothing to me. Underneath it all, a steady breathing sound that synced with my own if I listened too long. That's when I saw the figure ahead. Ranger jacket, same cut as mine, same reflective stripes. Walking at a steady pace, never looking back, always just far enough that my light couldn't reach their face. "Hey!" I called. "Stop!" They didn't. But they did raise a hand and pointed forward. That's when I noticed the name patch on the back of their collar. My name, spelled exactly right. The trail bent, and when I rounded the curve, they were gone. In their place stood another sign. This one didn't point anywhere. It just said, "On duty." And beneath it, barely visible in scratched metal, "Keep moving." The path should have ended at the ravine. I knew that section of the park. There was a drop-off where the old service road collapsed years ago, marked with barricades and warning signs. You couldn't miss it. But when I reached the spot where the ground should have given way, the trail just kept going. No ravine, no barriers, just packed dirt winding between trees that felt too evenly spaced, like someone had planted them to frame the path. I checked my GPS. The arrow spun in slow circles, never settling. I started marking trees with survey tape from my vest, bright orange loops tied tight around branches. Every few minutes, I looked back to reassure myself I could follow them out. After a while, I realized I'd already passed the same knot twice. The tape was still there, but the trees weren't in the same place anymore. Some leaned where they hadn't before, others were missing entirely. The trail had shifted just enough that nothing lined up the way it should. That's when I found the gear. An old ranger hat, half buried in leaves, a flashlight with corroded batteries still inside. A radio antenna snapped clean off like it had been twisted, not broken. And further down, wedged between two roots, a patrol logbook. The cover was soft with rot, pages stuck together from years of damp. The first entries were normal, weather notes, trail checks, wildlife sightings. Then the handwriting changed. Shorter lines, repeated measurements, coordinates scribbled over and over again, all matching the spot where I stood. The last readable line said, "Trail moved again, adjusting route." My radio burst to life, not static, voices, rangers calling in check-ins, dispatch responding, routine traffic layered on top of itself like recordings playing out of sync. And under it all, the same breathing I'd heard before. Slow, patient, too close to be mine. I turned in a slow circle, heart hammering. Every direction looked the same. Same trees, same fog, same narrow strip of dirt leading forward. Then I heard boots behind me. Not running, walking, keeping pace. I didn't turn around, because I already knew what uniform I was going to see. I followed the sound of the footsteps because the trail stopped pretending I had a choice. The trees thinned, opening into a shallow clearing where the ground dipped into a wide, uneven pit. Rusted metal jutted from the dirt at odd angles, pieces of railing, bent fencing, the corner of what looked like a roof. An old outpost. Not on any modern map. I climbed down, boots sliding on loose gravel, and pushed through a doorway that had collapsed inward. Inside, the air smelled like wet paper and cold iron. My light caught on a desk still bolted to the floor, and a chair tipped on its side like someone had stood up too fast and never come back. Another logbook sat open on the desk. This one wasn't rotted, just used. The entries were neat at first: patrol times, weather shifts, notes about barrier maintenance. Then the tone changed. Trail repositioned by approximately 12 meters overnight. Adjusted markers accordingly. Radio interference increasing. Suspect proximity effect. Page after page, the same obsession. Measurements, adjustments, keeping the path contained. The final entries were written so hard the pen had torn through the paper. It doesn't want to be blocked. It wants to be worked. I felt the vibration before I heard it. A low hum, deep enough to rattle in my chest, like something massive breathing underground. The walls shuddered, dust raining down from the ceiling as if the forest itself were shifting its weight. My radio crackled. "Hale," Dan's voice said, clear, calm. "You okay out there?" Relief hit me so hard my knees almost gave out. "Dan, I'm off the trail. There's some kind of structure. You're not off it," he interrupted gently. "You're right where it wants you." My blood ran cold. "You crossed the tape," he continued. "That means it can assign you, same way it did him." "Assign me to what?" There was a pause. "To maintenance." Behind me, the footsteps stopped. I felt someone standing close enough that their breath brushed the back of my neck. And in the cracked window of the outpost, I saw my reflection lift its hand and point back toward the trail. I ran. Not back to the trail, away from it, toward the far edge of the clearing, crashing through brush and deadfall with no plan except distance. Branches tore at my jacket, roots tripped me, but I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my legs shook. When I finally looked up, I was back on the path. Same narrow strip of dirt, same trees, same soft fog clinging to the ground. The trail hadn't chased me. It had waited. My radio clicked on again, but this time there was no static, no overlapping voices, just Dan. "We don't close it," he said quietly. "We staff it. Always have." I staggered forward as the path gently sloped downward, every step feeling less like movement and more like settling into place. People think containment means fences and locks, he continued. But it doesn't want to break out. It wants to be part of the system, part of the routine. A ranger sign appeared ahead, fresh and clean. Patrol in progress. They used to block it, Dan said. That just made it restless. Started reaching farther, into roads, campgrounds, even the station once. My boots kept moving even when I tried to stop. So we changed tactics. Let it have a boundary. Let it have a job. The trail widened, becoming smoother, almost welcoming. Markers lined the sides now, evenly spaced, guiding me forward with quiet certainty. And it keeps the worst of itself inside, he finished, as long as someone tends it. A figure stood ahead, waiting. Not wearing my face anymore, just a blank, patient shape in a ranger's uniform, holding a roll of red tape in its hands. Once you accept the route, Dan said softly, you stop wanting to leave. My hand closed around the tape without remembering when I'd taken it. I turned back toward the entrance, toward the place where hikers sometimes wandered too close, where barriers needed resetting. Good, Dan murmured. You're learning fast. By the time dawn reached the treetops, I was standing at the edge of Sector C again. The trail was sealed. Fresh red tape stretched between the posts, tight and clean, fluttering gently in the morning breeze. No footprints crossed it. No fog lingered beyond it. Just trees, quiet and ordinary, like they'd always been that way. My boots were muddy. My hands smelled like metal. I stood there longer than I meant to, staring down the path, waiting for something to call out to me, for my voice to echo back from the woods, for the radio to crackle. Nothing did. Back at the station, the incident board was already updated. Missing hiker, search suspended, terrain unstable. No mention of the trail, no mention of me. Dan passed by my desk and set down a fresh roll of barrier tape. Good work last night, he said. We'll rotate you back to regular patrol tomorrow. I nodded, even though I didn't remember walking back. That afternoon, I noticed something new on the public trail map posted near the visitor center. A faint dotted line near the boundary, labeled Seasonal Maintenance Route, Restricted Access. Families stood nearby, pointing at waterfalls and picnic areas, unaware that anything had changed, that anything ever did. That night, as I locked up, my radio clicked on one last time. Not my voice, just breathing. Slow. Steady. Content. I keyed the mic and spoke without thinking. Barrier secure, I said. Trail stable. The breathing stopped, and somewhere in the woods, something stayed where it was supposed to. For now. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave a like. It really helps more people find Campfire Horror Stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications, because out here, there are a lot more places with rules no one explains, jobs no one warns you about, and paths you're never supposed to follow. Tell me in the comments, would you have crossed the tape? Or would you have walked away and hoped someone else handled it? Either way, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time around the campfire.